Well, there is also that old cartoon that shows two dogs at a keyboard in front of a monitor, and one of them tells the other, "On the internet, no one knows that you're a dog." This is just a picture that comes to my mind when online information warfare is mentioned. By the way, the cartoon triggered plenty of memes, many of them more drastic, as they emphasize the dangers that result from weaponization of social media and all the dirty tricks that the would-be masters of puppets use to manipulate public opinion. Which means me, and you, and also you. I'm all ears and curiosity now for the panel on information warfare, exploitation of history, religion, and economics in cyberspace, with two ministers of defense, and they are Artis Pabriks, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Defense of the Republic of Latvia, and Jaroslav, Minister of Defense of the Slovak Republic, coming to you in a Cybersec global panel hosted by Martin Achimović, Director of Nato Counterintelligence Center of Excellence, the main institutional partner of Cybersec.
Dear digital participants. It's my privilege and honor to lead panel with two distinguished guest speakers, people who are responsible for defense and safety within their respective countries, decision makers who are in lead of creation defense and security policy from the state point of view, and in one breath I must say, experts who are deeply involved in security topics for a long time. Ladies and gentlemen, on our virtual stage, I would like welcome Dr. Artis Pabriks, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defense of the Republic of Latvia. Good afternoon, sir. And
Good afternoon.
And Mr. Jaroslav, Minister of Defense of Slovak Republic. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Hi, Martin. Hi, Artis. Good to see you both.
Good afternoon. Dear Minister, once again, thank you for accepting our invitation and finding the window within your schedule. And I hope we will have a nice discussion during upcoming minutes. Topic for today's discussion is information warfare. Information warfare is a relatively modern doctrinal term. It appears late 20th century in the military lexicon. However, approach of using information as a weapon of war is as old as warfare itself. People with a living memory want to have information advantages to bring decision or adjust circumstances for their profit. Probably everybody of us knows story about Trojan horse. Next good example could be Chinese general and war strategist Sun Tzu, who said that to subdue the enemy without fighting is acme of skills. I think this is the clear proof information warfare has been used as a war techniques from beginning. One of the great examples of information warfare can be found during the World War II. Planning of D-Day invasion of Normandy includes giving the Nazis the opportunity to discover information that led the Germans to believe D-Day would happen in different locations. How to define information warfare? We are talking about information warfare. I think it's not precise defined, but NATO definition says that information warfare is an operation conducted in order to gain an information advantage over the opponent. It consists in controlling one's own information space, protecting access to one's own information, while acquiring and using the opponent's information, destroying their information system, and disturbing the information flow. Coming to the present time, we can say that period of technological development has affected information being disseminated faster and on a larger scale. For example, in 1987, when abstraction internet appeared, was connected to the internet 27,000 computers. 9 years later, 1996, around 55 million computers. During the millennium, 250 million, and in 2020, over 2 billions. Today, I have no number how many computers are connected to the network. However, I think everybody of us is using not on daily, but hour by hour several devices connected to the internet. The internet has enabled a capacity to distribute information in near real time compared to the past when information was spread by leaders with little or no independent verification. Developing of internet has not only positive effects. From information warfare perspective, society is now inundated with information, and it has become very hard to separate fake information from real facts. And now I'm coming to my first question. I would like to ask Deputy Prime Minister, if I may, sir. What's your point of view of the role of technology in both enabling and countering fake news propaganda, which is used by a variety of actors to influence population and generate possible conflict? What's your opinion?
Thank you. Thank you for introduction, and thank you for giving me a word. And I also have a great honor to participate in this discussion. First, I think in order to give an answer how to act, we have to assess the situation correctly. And as you mentioned earlier, speaking about modern doctrine of misinformation, I think that we should not mislead ourselves, because your second example was actually turning it upside down, because you were using two very good examples. One was a Trojan horse, another was a D-Day. Obviously, D-Day, this is a relatively recent history in historic terms, but Trojan horse is a very, very distant history. So what I want to say with this, namely destruction, misinformation, deception, being a pretender, this always have been a part of warfare, not only modern warfare, because those people who control minds, those people who can make impression, they also have a larger chance to win, or at least not to lose. So examples of Sun Tzu, Clausewitz, or even Japanese martial arts expert Miyamoto Musashi are always here at a great help. The difference between those days and today, obviously, is not the changes of use of misinformation, but rather an appearance of a number of new weaponry. It's just like the invention of nuclear bomb at the end of the Second World War changed the pattern how people were thinking about possible Third World War or next tensions. But social media, the modern social media, these are those new weapons which are at this moment still in the minds of many people, not falling under the restrictions of old regulations. And that's a difference. So that means that we have a bunch of new technologies. We have a number of countries which are increasingly using these modern technologies. And then we still have the old understanding of warfare, maybe based on previous examples. And this is what, in my understanding, creates the stress. While we are speaking now, we are probably undergoing also some kind of a media war also here in Latvia, at the border of European Union, at the border of Nato. And because we are a border country, this also was maybe creating for us the awareness about so-called propaganda, or about use of different types of new technologies in social media in order to influence minds of people, even in the times when there is no actual hot war going on, but there is a going on war among different types of media in order to catch those minds. If we are looking from our own experience, and of course it's always easy to start with your closest experiences and examples, then we have been very much experiencing kind of contradictory positions on the media level between our side here on the European Union and NATO, and on the media which are active on the eastern side of our border, which is, first of all, Russia and Belarus at this moment. We also can bring here Caucasian region with Nagorno-Karabakh, Azerbaijan and Armenia, which are now involved in the hot war, but also there media war is going on and social media is used. So what is happening? In our case, we can see that opponents or our neighbors are frequently using different type of media, not only kind of social media like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, but also traditional TV channels, which are seen all across the Western world, like, for instance, RT or former Russia Today, in order to create the picture that the Western world is corrupt. Such countries as Latvia are failed states because they can't provide either enough security against COVID-19 or not enough social security for their people, etc. So different topics are used in dependence on which country is tackled. And the discrepancy appears, at least in one sense, but not only. Namely, in such countries like Russia and Belarus, the media is strictly and strongly and deeply integrated into the modern understanding of these countries, how to lead the warfare, knowing that in authoritarian states, media can't be free. So also social media can't be really free. So they are, in fact, messaging the things which are previously created. On our side of the border exists a different system. It's a democratic system. This is where media is free, where media can freely criticize their own government, and who frequently do not criticize without reason governments or societies of another countries. And the discrepancy appears in that sense that if the state controls social media, then they have, at least in the initial phase, create much larger impact also on our societies here in the West, because we are not protected against such propaganda, and we are used on the public level to basically less critically read and look at those news which are appearing. And that creates, of course, distraction. And this is how they are using this old advice of Sun Tzu, simply to sicken the minds of ordinary people. So what are the answers? There's not an easy answer. I think one of the issues is very much to raise awareness about this disinformation in a public, and raise awareness extremely rapidly. For instance, in Latvia, we have located also a so-called forward presence group of Nato, EFP group, where also we are grateful to Slovak nation about sending their soldiers here for common good. And one of the attacks in spring was about telling the information that large number of EFP NATO group here in Latvia are actually infected by COVID-19. There were the lies. But we acted very quickly in the nearest hours after these news appeared on some of the platforms. We told, look, we here give the right information. Please see that this is a misleading information. It's not correct, etc. So public was not very much affected. But in many other Western countries, I think that this awareness, because of smaller experience in such a warfare, they are not acting so quickly as possible. Secondly, I think we have to also use all means how to create a so-called media literacy. In our case, we started kind of extraordinary rules under the auspices of the Ministry of Defense. So first of all, we have been the ones which first were ringing the bell. Already some 7 years ago, we were applying to our NATO colleagues and telling we need now the Excellence Center of Strategic Communication. So already for a number of years in Riga, in our capital, exists NATO Excellence Center for Strategic Communication, which is analyzing all such types of appearances and apparently giving also very good advices to different regions and different countries and governments and societies if needed. So that was our contribution also to the common good of NATO, because in many ways, Baltic countries, or this region at the Baltic Sea, is a litmus test as far as Western relationship is going to proceed in the nearest time vis-à-vis such countries as Russia. Already for 2 years, we have been also raising awareness about possible distractions in Belarus. So as we see, it also happened starting with middle of August. Where also Belarusian regime was now starting to use information in order to try to pacify their own nation by telling that NATO troops are at the Belarusian border and that NATO would like to distract or even undermine the fundament of Belarusian state, which of course is a total naked lie, but we have to act to this. And the good thing is that in former times, for instance, for such a small country as Latvia, it would be very difficult to create a TV or radio channel like, for instance, BBC or something like this, with which we could inform also a Belarusian nation about disinformation. But at this moment, once the social media exists, in fact, it is not only the offensive weapon, it can be also used as a defensive weapon, because we can also, with relatively small amounts of money, give counter-information. We also can see why, for instance, Mr. Navalny was poisoned in Russia, because he was extremely well using such channels as YouTube in order to proceed with open information which is not available on other places in Russia. So actually, authoritarian regimes, which themselves are trying to use the new technologies, including also cyber attacks, they are not less vulnerable in a longer term than democratic societies. So in our case, we simply have to raise the awareness as soon as possible. We have to be advancing technologically. This is very important, that we must be technologically superior. And then we have to use this hand in hand also with possibilities to use these technologies in order to advance the correct and trustful information. I think that's for the beginning on my side would be enough. I will stop now, and then I hope for a little bit more deep discussion on the matter if there is an interest.
Thank you, sir, for your complex answer. If you don't mind, I will turn to Slovakia now. Minister Nať, sir, please, what's your opinion about my first question? What's the role of technology in enabling or countering fake news?
Thank you, Martin. And I'd like to start first with expressing congratulations to the organizers of this conference. It proved to be a very successful and deep in substance conference over its existence, and I need to say that I'm so proud to be a part of it today, at least in the online version. Second, I don't want to repeat many things that Artis already mentioned in his first intervention. Yes, obviously, technology brought, I would say, an unimaginable, let's say a few decades ago, unimaginable comfort to people, and brought many very important and positive things to all of us. On the other hand, as it usually happens, you have both sides of the coin, and sometimes even good things bring or have a dark side. And spread of disinformation in these terms is really this kind of example. We have very similar experience here in Slovakia, also being on the eastern flank of NATO, being a border state of Schengen, being a border state of NATO, having very strong influence of some of countries with different interests, including Russia, for sure. And if I don't want to repeat what Artis said, I would like to touch upon one concrete thing, and which is actually social media, which usually they usually serve as a common platform for spreading disinformation or misinformation, politically biased as well, unfortunately. I don't say that it's a fault of social media, but they have their own, I would say, responsibility. We need to discuss with people who are behind social media of different style. I need to say that, for example, Twitter, usually when it is used for disinformation, disinfo on Twitter has 6 times higher number of viewers or views than normal adequate reporting or news. And this is obviously a thing that we need to look at. I'm speaking now about algorithm of the system. So they have their own social responsibility, and we need to discuss that with people who are responsible for social media. So if I don't want to repeat everything what Artis said, I would stop here and I wait for other questions that you might have.
Thank you, sir, for your answer. If you don't mind, I will follow the question to you once again. Next question is regarding information warfare. I hope both of you, dear ministers, agree with me that it's a weapon that can fundamentally change area of conflict. And it is no weapon. We need to change the lethal guns or weapons for, let's say, affecting of minds and hearts. And I would like to ask, if it's possible, or how can this weapon be effectively counteracted? Is it possible, or it's a huge question?
Well, everything is possible, and we need to do our job here. Yes, obviously we are on defensive side now. This is reality. Usually we just react. We have actually 2 options how to deal with disinformation, and it's either preventive approach or then it's approach that I would call reactive. Reactive approach means basically that you simply try to prove some evidence and try to fight with false information. Usually, you try to point out to originator of this information and then explain to people. It takes time. It requires, I would say, joint approach, cooperation of different institutions, cooperation between state organizations, NGOs, media. It's not that easy. It's still better to have a, I would say, preventive approach. But this means, obviously, strategic communication. And I'm so proud to say here at MOD that we started to work with the strategic communication very effectively. We communicate through social media, we communicate through regular media, trying to inform people in advance, and it brings some fruit. Popularity of armed forces is getting higher. We don't let that much space to disinformation actors, state or private, to present their truth in various situations, including situations like deployment of our forces abroad for various operations. Artis already mentioned EFP. Obviously, that was one of examples where also here in Slovakia, many actors try to spread disinformation, but it looks like we have people on our side here, and even in Parliament, I'm so proud to announce that much more than the constitutional majority of parliamentarians voted to support our deployment to EFP operation, even though Russian state-owned propaganda was rather very difficult, and we had to be prepared for that. But we succeeded. Strategic is something that helps a lot, and I believe that if we use this tool adequately and in a proper way, then information warfare might be something that we can have on our side.
Thank you, sir. From my position, I can approve that strategy regarding spreading information within the Ministry of Defense of Slovakia has been improved. At least from my position here, I see improvement. So thank you very much. And I would like to turn back to Latvia, if I may. Sir, can be information warfare extended in physical realm by weaponization citizens? I mean, if we can find examples, or if we can expect some examples in the future, if relatively small groups can be using information warfare for their future agendas?
Sorry, if it was to me, I didn't understand the question
sorry.
because
Sorry.
technology is
Okay. I would like to ask if information warfare can be extended in the physical realm by weaponization citizens. If we have small groups of sympathizer or activists, if they can be using for information warfare purposes in the future.
How do you mean with small groups of people?
For example, we have some people who are actively working in some matter, and they are, let's say, adjust some tactics or ideas of information warfare, and they can be like a trigger for next, let's say, riots or next insurgency activity within your country, or not within your country, but within countries.
Well, okay, I will try to answer in a little bit more complex way. Well, first of all, if some country, or let's say any subject, is willing to disseminate the wrong information, one of their goals is to find let's say, an agent which is trustable. Because in politics and also in military matters and in social matters, very much depend on the trust. And that means that if you want to disseminate some kind of information, you need to find a journalist, and so-called an expert, influencer, as we are now modernly speaking, or somebody who is willingly disseminated this information, either for money or because he or she believes in this, or simply, there is some other reason why this information goes through this person, and so it all makes this information more trustable. But we also must understand that we have certain limits for the human part as far as this information is organized, because along with the human part, increasingly, there is also the technological responsibility where comes in mind also such thing as artificial intelligence. And I think a number of countries and media are using this artificial intelligence in order to disseminate any kind of information, not only for political or military purpose, but also simply for the business purpose. But after time, these lines are blurring. So sometimes a company which is simply seeking a business fortune or trying to find what their customers are more interested in, and we can see this in a Google or a Facebook or something like this, that on the one hand, we are encouraging people to search for alternative sources and to search for broader information. But with the help of artificial intelligence, these companies which are regulating or possessing social media, we are actually distracted and deceived for getting objective information. Instead of that, we are increasingly starting to live in our own bubble. So people think that they have alternative opinions available, but in fact they are simply digging deeper and deeper in their own bubble, because the technologies, with the help either of artificial intelligence or some other technical means, are simply looking the patterns, what you are looking after, and then giving you more and more suggestions, which, as you know, many experts are claiming is increasingly fragmenting our societies and radicalizing our societies along those lines of opinions which we initially possess. And they investigate this. So, a part of the human part, I would say we need to work on the new regulations and awareness also among those huge conglomerates or companies, like, for instance, Facebook and Twitter. Because our research, also through the help of NATO Excellence Center of Strategic Communication, shows that once we speak, for instance, about elections or election campaigns in various countries, it is much easier to restrict objective human positions than bots, than artificially created disseminators of this information. And I think at this moment, Facebook and Twitter and some other companies, they are still far from understanding the vulnerability of modern societies and modern states, and they are far from understanding how could they objectively help people to get objective information, how to help people not to stick within their bubbles, how to help people not to be fragmented, societies not to be fragmented, because fragmentation is one of the biggest dangers also as far as we see military warfare, because the opponent always wants to fragmentate something which is homogeneous, because homogeneous thing is much more difficult to influence. So it happens that actually just by habit, new technologies are fragmentating, and those who are using new technologies and social media for military or political purposes are simply putting additional wood into the fire of this fragmentating nature of social technologies or technologies of social media. And that is the largest problem. So it's not only people, it's companies and artificially created news disseminators, which are actively sponsored by the opponents.
Thank you, sir, for answer. You mentioned during your speech connection alternative opinion. I will follow up with question. What's your opinion? Where is the boundaries between having a different opinion and spreading disinformation? It is possible to recognize difference?
Not always easy, but the question is about quality. The problem is, and here as a politician, of course, I have to be very careful because nobody likes that politicians are criticizing media or somebody connected with media, because this is interference in another realm of social life, even if opposite is always encouraged, of course. But the thing is, what we sometimes see as a cartoon, that if 50 years ago, when we needed an alternative opinion or qualitative opinion, we were turning to experts in university. Today, we are asking bloggers. Today, we do not have any more time for investigative journalism in a longer time, because everybody is asking answers immediately, because we live in a very speedy times. And that creates additional problem, of course. A part of that, there is one more not politically correct answer, but it is connected with political correctness. Namely, we can see that across the world, whenever we follow different issues, either it is a Black Lives Matters, or it is a gender equality, or it is just names of things, we can see increasing patterns in number of high-ranking academic institutions, universities. Especially there have been discussions about universities in United States, and I here, in order not to be perceived wrongly, I can even quote such journals as The Economist, which have been writing that in these institutions it's increasingly difficult to get a pluralistic view, because simply number of views, in order to preserve so-called political correctness, number of views are simply not anymore allowed to appear on the plate of discussion, of the field of discussion. And I think it's extremely dangerous, because we need, from the academic purpose and from the perspective of looking for truth, we don't need always the equal representation of different opinions, because it's not a matter of opinion only. It's a matter of coming closer to the right answer, to the truth. Because if I am a cognitive reader of an older newspaper, I want to understand the situation as much as possibly from the objective perspective. But if I am excluded because of the number of reasons, I cannot tell one thing because it maybe can be offensive to one group or another group, or I have no time enough to research this because I have to give an answer very quickly, or simply opinion is stated because it's simply opinion without any facts and arguments. That creates a superficial situation where people are asked to present their views, but they are not asked to think deeply. So that means, in some way, our political culture of political correctness are also helping create always not correct and right answers, but give superficial answers to very difficult questions. And that also assists, of course, to disinformation goals, and it is countering media literacy, and that's a problem.
Thank you, sir. Now I'm turning back to Slovakia, if I may. Sir, I have one maybe tricky question to you. I know both of our countries, I mean Latvia and Slovakia, are member of alliance, NATO alliance, and NATO is mostly defensive organization. However, I would like to ask if it's possible in democratic nations use information warfare tactics against adversary population to deter the same behavior. I mean, if it's possible to look from different perspective, not just wait for attacks, but also be active and make some attacking, not in a proper way as I mentioned, but make some steps prior.
It is a tricky question, Martin. Thank you for that. But let me come back first to the previous question that you asked, Artis, talking about a different opinion. Well, different opinion is absolutely all right. It's absolutely okay if you have opinion that is based on fact. That is absolutely fine. And I like discussion and even arguments with people with different opinion if they use at least information that they consider to be fact. The problem is if these facts are actually, I would say, not precise, or they are actually fake news. And this is responsibility also of us politicians to try to behave responsibly. And it is sometimes very difficult, even in political discussion, also here in our reality in Slovakia, when I see people trying to use or spread their opinion among nations, but they use fake news on purpose. And this is extremely dangerous, and we need to be very cautious, because we are actually contributing to, in such a behavior, in such a negative behavior. If politicians are behaving in this way, we are contributing to lowering trust in a democratic political system, which is basically something that we should also armed forces fight for, not against. Coming back to your question, well, no, we should not use the same thing against, I would say, adversary. One of the goals of information warfare is to plant a seed of doubt, and we shouldn't use that, because if these doubts exist and they grow, then at the end of the day we can doubt everything. So our goal now, our adequate role is to fight against disinformation, not to spread disinformation. And I think spreading disinformation is very short game. At the end of the day, the truth comes out, and we need to focus on the next step. Not to see only a few things in front of us. We're talking about democracy, we're talking about human rights, we're talking about values, and we shouldn't use disinformation to, even if we try to change regime or to change the politics somewhere, we shouldn't use this tool because it's something that will not work in a longer period of time. For sure not.
Thank you, sir. If I understood you correctly, we should be prepared, counteract, but not to be active in that war. Thank you. Because time is flying.
We should be active in fighting disinformation, but we shouldn't be active in spreading disinformation.
Because time is flying, I would like to raise last round of the question, if I may. It will be same question for both of you, dear ministers. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm director of one of the Center of Excellence. Second one was mentioned during the speech of Deputy Prime Minister from Latvia. And I would like to ask if you see the reason to work at that chain of activities and centers of excellence, for example, because mainly they are, let's say, think tank and theoretical from civilian perspective. We are not acting actively. We are not providing activities. However, we are preparing the people. We are setting the standards. Do you see the effect, and do you see, how to say, the place for institutions such like our COEs into the modern world? Please, we could start with Mr. Pabriks.
Yes, surely. I mean, I think you are extremely humble when you speak about such institutions. There is a very, very important place for such institutions. And if I have to judge by my own experience working with NATO Excellence Center for Strategic Communication, and I believe there could be the similar experience also with other centers, they are the ones which very much helped us, and not only us, but I would say all European NATO nations to build so-called media literacy. They assist all of us with building resilience, and they assist us also with trying to find our own vulnerabilities, because we know that looking even from the military perspective, our ordinary soldiers, our national guards, which are civilians, who in their spare time are involved in different kind of military exercises, they are only humans, and they are vulnerable to those perceptions which exist in social media, which can exist in Facebook, which can exist in Twitter, which can exist in YouTube. So we have to immediately educate them to make them understand that the adversary is using currently, today, in this hour, these means for their own advantage against these people, trying to create either mistrust or, as my colleague told, disbelief in something. So whenever there will be understanding this, our resilience and our army and our societies at large will be much stronger, and they will not be any more subdued to the influence of such type of disinformation or propaganda. I will not mention now concrete examples because we do have a lack of time, but they do exist, and whenever there will be a chance, I will be always happy to share them, or also an institute which exists here, NATO Excellence Center, is able also to inform you about their activities. And these activities, believe me, are great and they assist us. So we have to keep on with this.
Thank you, sir, for your answer. Just to add, I will be more than happy to invite you here to Krakow to see how our Center of Excellence works. It will be a pleasure for us to host you here. And the same question to the Minister Nato, if I may ask, sir, do you see a role of Centers of Excellence during nowadays?
Oh, absolutely, yes. You play a very important role here, and I need to say that we, all of us, state organizations, NGOs, academia, private sector, we all have our part of play in our struggle to fight disinformation and to fight against cyber attacks and so on and so forth. Obviously, that is one of the reasons why the Slovak Republic decided to create, together with Poland, this Center of Excellence for Counterintelligence in Krakow. Therefore, there is a reason why we have deployed our specialists to Center of Excellence for Cybersecurity and to Center of Excellence for Strategic Communication. yes, all these organizations have a very important role, and it's a puzzle. All of us, we need to work hard in order to fulfill our requirements. That we need to fulfill our goals that we would like to reach in order to create this puzzle and to find adequate way how to fight all forms of disinformation, propaganda, or all forms of cyber attacks that we need to simply face. I wish to Krakow-based Center of Excellence for Counterintelligence all the best. I'm looking forward to coming back to Krakow again. I think I was there like 6 weeks ago, and it will be great to come back again.
Sir, of course, invitation is valid also for you. So anytime we are more than welcome to see you here and to show you our profit and our perspective for the future. Dear ministers, thank you for your valuable time, valuable points, and for your, let's say, opinions. I wish you to be patient in your next career and in your next job, because it's not easy. And I hope we will see in next discussion forum. Thank you very much, and I wish you a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and I wish you a very successful conference.
War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength, with naturally our intelligence being their strength. Is there a better recapitulation for a discussion on information warfare than this quote from George Orwell's 1984?